Hi everyone, I'm here with G2 versus Gen.G in the Worlds quarterfinals of Worlds 2020, and I'm doing a game and draft analysis. So far, we see the bands are brought up here, and we can see some stuff that is a little more ordinary, a little more unordinary. As of the farm junglers, right now only Graves has been banned, which means Lilia is still on the table, Nidalee's still on the table. Kindred is usually a Graves counter, but she's still up. Syndra's banned, which I think is slightly more common versus G2. Before, it was more of a flex pick for them, but I think in general nowadays people are mostly scared of it being played middle by Caps. And Lucian's a very common ban. I think one of the big picks that's up right now is TF. So we're gonna have to look at if either of these mid laners are interested in Twisted Fate, and then like some of the strategies that are being pulled out right now, or some of the tactics are Ornn and Renekton have been banned by both sides. So maybe we can try and think about what that means. Ornn is very good against certain lethality builders, poke compositions, right? Or maybe if you want to play a stronger side top lane, you don't want your opponent to play weak side top lane. On the other side, Renekton was banned, so maybe you don't want your opponent playing Renekton Nidalee or two top side focused strategies, so you can focus more on bot lane. Or maybe you're interested in splitting with Camille and you don't want Renekton up. So there's some implications of the stylistic bans that these teams have chosen. But let's see what the first pick is, right? So we usually expect, right, in Worlds, the bread and butter is we expect it to be a farm jungler first, especially when a farm jungler is banned. It isn't always. In this case, it is. It's Lilia. And I think the priority on Lilia is on and off depending on what teams we look at. Right, in the series yesterday, Fnatic versus Top, right, the Lilia priority was a little weird, but Clid's saying, yeah, I'm comfortable on this, I'm happy to go Lilia, and I'm happy to play it into whatever you're picking, and G2 respond with a Camille and a Nidalee. So Nidalee's is the other main farm jungler up, because once again Kindred's usually picked into Graves, and as I said, Renekton could be indicative of a Camille pick as a split pusher. Regardless of whether Wunder is a good or bad Camille player, he's definitely one of the most intelligent split push players. So there's a lot of options for G2 in the top lane currently. And it's going to be a matter of how hard Gen.G want to focus on this top. Do they want to try and maybe match the lane presence, or do they just want to make it a weak side? And right now, they're hovering the Volibear. Not that surprising. I'm not sure exactly what the overall strength of Volibear is, but Rascal has shown that he's proficient and comfortable on it. But it's definitely something that Camille is able to lane with Grasp, and it doesn't really matter which lanes Camille is good or bad into. She sets up really well for junglers, and Nidalee's a very fast-paced early game jungler. And then a more interesting pick comes in. We get the Kalista, right? That's a more early game centric AD carry. So there's some scaling options already missing on the side of Gen.G. And a lot of ability to go forward. I don't like Volibear as much as a peeling pick, although sometimes people do play him like that. It does look like Gen.G is probably going to want to look for team fights and run into their opponent, especially because I think I'd be worried about Camille's ability to split in the side lane right now. And then TF makes it all the way to this point through the draft, right? Both teams kind of baiting each other to pick it, right? So on one hand, it's just a priority pick. But on the other hand, TF is considered really strong with split pushers and, right, stuff that pressures in the side lane. So you tend to badly want Twisted Fate when you have either Camille or Jax. And at the same time, when you're fighting Camille or Jax, so in the case of Gen.G, you often want a Twisted Fate as well, so that you can shut down. So they can't run wild in the side lane. They feel the pressure of a global presence, and it does seem like both teams were really baiting each other to pick to pick this champion, because G2 opens up with Camille and is like, if you want to pick the global pressure champion, go ahead. And Gen.G throw it right back to them and say, look, you can pick it in your Camille comp, and hey, we're even going to pick Kalista, a champion that's mainly shut down by point-and-click CC. So it's a pick that's been very strong, so it's interesting kind of how much it seems like both teams were baiting each other into picking it. I don't know if G2 was baiting Gen.G into picking it as much as just prioritizing Nidalee and Camille more, but it definitely feels like Gen.G was well aware that the TF would be coming in and didn't pick anything that would really dissuade a TF pick. And if perhaps you're G2 and you're now worried about Gen.G's counter to TF, you might be inclined to ban certain mid laners that you think might give you trouble. If you think maybe there's some special pick, like, I don't know, BDD's played like Gazillion in the past, you know, and they are missing scaling options. Not that I necessarily think Zillion's a good pick here. I was just thinking of something off meta which would make Gen.G comfortable fighting TF so boldly here. Gragas is banned. That's definitely for bot lane. Ashe's like considered a counter in general to Kalista because she can slow her easily, and of course Kalista being slowed will also slow her attack speed. But it's not like an absolute counter, it's a very soft counter. Galio is the ban out of G2's side. That is just so that they can remove heroes that are able to match the global presence of Twisted Fate, right? They want to, when you're running this split push stuff, you want as much global pressure as possible and to take away as much as you can of your opponent. In general, I have a lot of criticisms of Galio, but he's a very clear game plan in this game. He can drop in on the Volibear. Volibear plus Galio is a super hard initiate. The comp might be a little weird on damage and a little weird on scaling, but other than that, it would be very strong if Gen.G is able to just blow the game out. And now, of course, the AD and support are the options. Senna is the next ban. I'm a big fan of Senna in a comp like this. I've talked about how I like Senna with Nidalee, Renekton, right? Similar. I've also talked about how I like Senna with Camille, right? Just give Senna something to do in the early game by propping up her melee divers, and then also giving yourself an additional scaling condition. And she is technically global pressure. I shouldn't say technically. It's very important at this level of gameplay. Pantheon. So Pantheon definitely fits the theme of global pressure and going forward, as well as on-click crowd control for Kalista, but I doubt it will have that much. I doubt it'll help with lane phase very much. Okay, so I wouldn't expect a Taric here, but I see what they're going for. So Taric is Taric Kalista is like a combo that we've seen in the past. It's a very strong one. I think one of the spookiest versions of it was watching Karzi and Kaiser play at bottom together, where basically Kalista goes for her double lifesteal build with Bork, Runans, Bloodthirster, and I guess maybe right now people will prioritize Death Stance, depends. And you just give Kalista the invulnerability so that she can just go in and do her thing, and even if she drops low pre the invulnerability going up, she can just heal it up with lifesteal abilities. It's just a way for Kalista to get right into the fray of things, apply her Ren stacks to everyone, and do as much damage without worrying about her own safety or range limitations. And Taric is kind of multifunctional, but he can certainly be played as like anti-dive in a way, but he also has a very straightforward frontliner tank that's going to be able to jump in, and he's going to be able to put his ability on, and perhaps Gen.G is going to want to look for some sort of mid that can follow up with that style, but of the available picks left in the game, I don't know what that would be. One of the issues with Taric is he opens up the ability to choose counter supports that can also scale, something like Lulu or just like a free Bard pick. Bard would have been nice if G2 was counter picking here. But since Gen.G's already seen the Pantheon, it makes a lot of sense to just pick up the Taric since they shouldn't get pressured too hard in lane. And then BDD, pretty much the only person at World still going for the Azir, picks Azir. On one hand, Azir makes perfect sense here because there's a lot of dive, and Azir is the end-all be-all counter to dive, but it does make Gen.G's comp a little disjointed. I don't love Volibear as a peel pick, but it will bring that level of scaling that Gen.G was missing. It just doesn't really offer the early game global presence or roaming presence to help deal with G2. Because right now, I think there's a lot of good stuff going for Gen.G. I wouldn't be surprised if this Jhin is locked in. Jhin looks really good here. So G2's got a comp with a ton of early game, a ton of global pressure, and a lot of dive and initiate, right? So the ways that we're going to want to deal with that are anti-dive, and basically every hero in Gen.G can deal with that pretty decently. Kalista might have issues, but Taric's going to shut that down nicely. It's going to play right into where Lilia and Azir want to play, and Volibear will be kind of hit or miss on how helpful he is, but Gen.G wanted to divert out of the style of comp that they were drafting because they were still flexible enough in their first 3 picks. The main issue I'm feeling right now is despite Kalista being a very solid early game hero, there is so much low priority in Gen.G's early game right now that I'm scared G2 is just going to run over the game. But if Gen.G can nullify the early stages of the game, nullify the early pressure, global pressure, roam pressure, and get to a mid-game stage where it's very hard to dive in to Gen.G's 5v5 on the objectives, and perhaps slow down the Camille enough that taking the game slow doesn't become a major side lane threat, then Gen.G can win this game. But overall, I think Gen.G kind of has a counter draft, but I'm going to definitely give this draft over to G2 because I think it's way too much pressure to deal with, and it's a lot of pressure that isn't just straight early game. There is enough scaling to actually close it out. But let's see how it actually plays out.
I think that Kalista Taric is just inherently a very strong level 1, and they play that we like Rascal.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Rascal, I had production ping me. It says they think Rascal flashed, and we're going to have a look down towards this. So G2 did go in for a little bit of invade. There's the stun, as you can see in your picture. Rascal just
did we miss this?
So that's a big loss for Rascal in the
My bad. Let's go back.
His action between G2 and Gen.G can match up to the caliber we saw previously.
Oh wait, was it not on cast? Oh, it just wasn't on stream. Is that what happened? Or was that just happening? I'm getting beyond confused. It happened off stream. Okay, it wasn't on the stream. So they go for an invade, Pantheon starts W, they get the ward in, and they get a flash out. Yeah, giving Camille as easy a lane phase as possible is definitely a win condition. Ooh, getting aggressive. Good damage.
If he falls behind early, Wonder is going to take over the game on the Camille as we see a bit of trading down towards the bot side.
And the thing with this sort of trading is
there's so much initiate and proactivity on on G2's comp.
And you want to try and get the damage to stick before that Taric gets his heal. Because as soon as Taric gets the heal in the
very
lane,
concerning if you're a fan of Gen.G. I think stylistically, G2 is just a team that I would expect to beat Gen.G. Even if maybe you think G2 isn't going to be as good this year round because maybe Jankos isn't as proficient on the meta junglers. I think these two teams stylistically is a good matchup for G2, where they can't quite meet the heavy aggression of G2, and yeah.
Keep your eyes on Jankos. You can already see him pathing up towards the top side of the map, hovering around 1 Wunder's lane, offering both protection but also looking for an opportunity to gank.
Clid is nearby as well. He's actually just doing
Jankos is
his
just
job right
chilling
now. Rascal's gonna use the stun there
in case
onto
Lily
Wonder.
comes over, but is
Jankos
really
still
just setting up
popping
for
down
Crab.
towards mid. Perk's gonna get forced back underneath this tower. Doesn't have
Alright,
heal
so
on
this
him.
this early game ended up going really well. Gen.G picked their fight really nicely, waited for 2, and I think we can always safely assume that Ruler will perform adequately. Okay, so even if Azir can't match the alt roam pressure of TF, he tends to get the shove in on every matchup, and often that means that you will end up getting the Crab. I think G2 and Jankos were really playing for it though, because it felt like Wonder had a lot of push in the side lane, but they weren't quite able to go for it. So maybe a little bit of wasted time out of Jankos, just because he didn't have hindsight. Just because like we're talking hindsight. Ooh. Yeah, I don't, I mean, that's probably not a kill anyways, it has to be like a Q auto. It looks like Clid doesn't Q flash, usually people Q flash as Lily as opposed to flash Q. I'm not sure, but it looks like a flash Q. Ooh, and the teleport comes out of Caps. Oh, they have to try and burst Volibear to the best of their ability, but Jankos goes first. Looks like Caps is going to go as well. I mean, that is super fortunate for Gen.G, right? So TF is more proactive in his teleports because he has like a point-and-click hard CC. But if it doesn't actually work out and Azir is able to follow up and clean up, that's like a really great opening pressure swing for Gen.G. That's actually that's very big.
This early lead we talked about, the G2 rather wanted to look for, already starting to flounder. So we can see here, Wonder still only level 3, doesn't actually land the stun.
Ooh, yeah, he misses the E.
No,
Volibear does so much damage when you get put in a scenario like that. We know, like, from seeing the future that a little extra damage on Volibear actually could have made her, would have actually probably gifted first blood to G2. So Wonder missing E there actually ended up being super influential. It was the difference between first blood. Like, they weren't going to win the fight anyways, it was still a 2-for-1, but the first blood would have equalized the gold a little bit. Perk's just rushing the Swifties this game.
G2 are a little bit too pushed in to get anything in their favor.
You can see that this early laning dominance coming out.
Ruler's gone for double Dorans. Oh, that's pretty good.
He's just going to slide out to safety. That's a lot of damage down onto Perks, and again, like, these punishes just keep coming out.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, it didn't seem like Pantheon, with what was left on the table versus Kalista, was going to offer too much laning pressure. Maybe later in the game, point-and-click stunning her will be helpful, but at this point, probably not. So the fact that they're able to win lane and draft Taric, it's pretty good.
That's a lot of damage down onto Perks, and again, like, these punishes just keep coming out. Ruler playing the lane extremely well.
Rascal has the level advantage on Wonder as well. Clid looking to get that swell suit just onto Perks, but couldn't quite land it. And as you say, Betty, it's a big early lead here for Gen.G.
Pretty good. Clid being here is pretty good. Jankos has already made his way across the map and is just going to be farming. So Clid's going to have to awkwardly leave here if he wants to continue farming, but instead he's going to go for Dragon. And based on Caps' health bar and mana bar, it seems reasonable. What's interesting is he's now walking up through top. He's going to bail on that. No, he's not. No, he's not. So, right, Gen.G is thinking, like, could they be contesting Dragon? But immediately, even with the lower health and mana bar, Caps just walks through top, and he doesn't walk through anywhere that would make sense to be warded, and they're just going to 3-man Rascal while their opponent does Dragon. Who gets the kill, though? Caps. Maybe Wonders, who we wanted that on? Maybe. Hard to say. So it's not the greatest play, right? It's like a 3-man, double ult commitments, not really favorable for G2's wave state. but they wanted to make something happen. It's also like, I think in scenarios like that, a lot of the times you can just be like, well, top laner, why did you die there? Like, there's only X number of things that the other team was able to do. But it is very tough to live a Camille combo like that, because even if you know the gank's coming, you can't get out of her Hextech ultimatum. They would have had to really preemptively assume the teleport was coming. And he would have had to immediately sack creeps and just assume Caps didn't back.
Gen.G in game 1. Early lane dominance, the bot lane playing well. It feels like they're kind of getting the win conditions that they want. What the analyst desk was talking about, enable Ruler, give him that lead, give him the ability to carry it.
So our assumption was probably that G2 was going to be, in the driver's seat in the early game, and they're not so far. So that's really good for Gen.G. If they can keep the pace like this, that'd be great.
He's played this game before, he's been ganked enough times to know when one is coming, just walks his way out of it. And I will mention, we talked about playing around Ruler and getting him ahead. Well, Ruler and Life have actually kind of just...
Azir should, if they make it far enough, should feel great in this comp, right? There aren't really champions that are outranging him. And it's just a lot of stuff diving in. The way Camille versus Azir works is a little interesting, though. When you dive in on Azir with your E as Camille, she is actually able to, unlike most heroes, she can actually avoid Azir's wall by ulting over it with her Hextech ultimatum. It's kind of a tricky timing, but it is like a very real threat that Camille applies on Gen.G that other diving, on Azir that other diving heroes can't really do. Clid's been in pretty good spots so far, but he did sacrifice a lot of farm in order to be in these spots, whereas Janko's kept up the farm. So maybe with like a little bit of extra gold on Nidalee, Janko's can make something happen, but we'll have to see. Because Janko's didn't bail out bot lane, he didn't go to Dragon, and he didn't go to Rift Herald, right? And his pathing towards top was in line with where he wanted to be anyways, whereas Clid going to Dragon and bot wasn't really where he wanted to be. He still had a lot of jungle camps up that he wanted to do. So Clid playing a little bit more for his team, Janko's playing a little bit more to put gold on himself.
Spotted out by that little ward by the Raptor camp, though. So Gen.G knows is coming. Life is responding in kind, both only level 5 for the time being. Jin now making his way up. He does push in the bot side. I don't think G2 is going to be able to steal anything off the back of this. Perkz is just going to walk straight over a ward.
G2 not
Gen.G
quite finding anything. Gen.G's playing very methodical, making very good reads on where G2 is at all times. So far, their reads on where the G2 members are on the map have been very good. Unfortunately, Ruler pushes up a little far here. That was a little surprising, because Gen.G had such a good read on G2 pushing up into them. It's surprising that Ruler gets caught out pushing up there, but he feels like he has to finish pushing in the wave so he doesn't get frozen on. Caps actually throws a blue card there. I assume it's a mistake, but maybe you can think like he felt that since Clid says cleanse anyways, it's more about maximizing damage, and blue card does do more damage than yellow card. But even that line of thought is like a mistake, because Pantheon does get in range to W.
But then Ruler seems like a bit of a slip in judgment there. Doesn't show that same level of respect, and in that small window,
I mean, G2 is killing a lot of time, so actually getting something off is meaningful.
G2 has done so well in the past this year. At times they have struggled to find their moments of opportunity.
I think for the most part, Wunder has probably dodged the points where this top matchup is going to be a little bit more difficult. And I think this matchup is at varying degrees of difficulty depending on how much Camille you've played, because the way that Volibear plays this lane is very straightforward, and the way Camille plays it can be a little bit tricky. There's some Camille mains that are like so comfortable in this matchup, whereas like usually at Worlds it'll be tricky for the Camille's, just because how Volibear has to play it is so straightforward. There you go. Here's the Hextech Ultimatum again. Jankos should not be missing this, right? He should know the Hextech Ultimatum is coming in, and it makes where Rascal's going very straightforward. He doesn't have options. Looks like they're not getting him, even if that spear lands. It's no way that's a kill. I don't know if G2's I don't know. I don't know if they're just feeling shaky, but not loving the way they're playing this so far. Gen.G look very, very focused, know what their win conditions are. I also think that it's interesting how Jankos is playing, because it is very different from how we usually see him play, right? He's still pressuring his lanes, right? He's not doing a bad job. It's just I'm not even saying I'm not even trying to imply he's doing a bad job. I just mean that it's good that G2 has used their time off to try and adapt to the meta more. Because it's very important that Jankos keeps that farm up. And his pathing seems a lot more logical this game than it often is. Ton of Gen.G wards through this bot side river. They've mainly left Rascal on an island, and frankly Rascal's doing super well on this island. It's just that Camille is, even if Volibear is winning for the most part, Camille is farming up without getting put behind. And Camille on pace farming is very scary. I guess maybe she's a little behind, which is kind of random considering how much help she got.
And as the game slows down a little bit, I do just want to talk a little bit about the history of G2 against Korean teams, Vedia. So hold it for a second as Jankos is just going to invade.
Yeah, so at this game state right now, it's actually looking super Gen.G favored. I think with at least one of these first two opening Drakes, we're supposed to go to G2, right? Because when you're playing earlier, you tend to want to get those dragons so that you can hit the soul. And G2 has neither of the first two dragons.
Korea's kryptonite, but for the time being, Gen.G have dominated the laning phase and they're setting themselves up nicely for the mid game. Twisted Fate has been able to get a couple of good ganks off, but it's not really resulted in a lot. Again, still a lot of this series left to go, nothing decided just yet, but look at that.
Jankos here for the billionth time. G2 deciding that if we are going to win this game, it has to be Camille being at the proper item spikes, because she is the only real scaling threat. Depending on what level of scaling you consider Twisted Fate, he can be considered a scaling hero as well. Absolutely.
This is going to hurt Twisted Fate's ability to roam as much as he wants, but it's kind of a necessity given that BDD is now towards the bot side of the map, also has the teleport, and they need him to be able to manage. It's also very unsafe for Caps to just sit in mid lane. It's a very long lane, potential flanks are very real, and he's only running the flash and the heal, so while he can likely get away from it, it's difficult for him to offer the same threat as perhaps a Perks and Mickey.
Chase potential from something like a Callisto with the Fate's Call on a Taric for Dazzle is just so strong when the lane is that little bit longer. Caps is pushing in here in the bottom lane. Jankos shadowing him as BDD does what we've seen him do a few times.
Flit is not slowing down the game plan. All the objectives will be his. G2 has already gone for a lane swap, which they didn't have to.
To give them up, they're going to make these cross-map plays instead. They're going to look to try and secure some towers. But the biggest thing that's starting to develop is actually the jungle difference. Of course, Jankos has been a big topic of conversation among analysts.
Jankos just playing the opposite sides, farming the whole time that Klid is playing for objectives.
Can't play carry junglers, whereas I'm more of the opinion that G2 don't know how to play through Jankos as a carry jungler. And I think that
so Jankos is on an item now, right? So maybe in the next fight, that'll be advantageous.
Counter jungling and currently has a 2-level advantage, and it's one of the highest gold earners in the game. So I think props to how Jankos has been playing this jungle matchups amounts there.
I'm just mainly worried because it is 2 opening dragons for Gen.G. And now we have to see, right? So here comes the dragon in 20 seconds. Do they want to use Jankos' lead to do something here? Is it like, is that item advantage enough to win this fight, you know? can G2 win without actually just making picks with global? Can G2 even win fights without just making preemptive picks with their global abilities? I'm not even sure, right? Like, it might be too difficult to deal with Azir in just a straight 5v5, and Kalista is going to still be very strong at this point. We'll see. If G2 can find a spot where Kalista and Azir aren't grouped to pressure divers off of each other, and they're able to pick one, that would definitely be an opportunity. So I don't know the result of this series in games, but I have a feeling, based on just like the sentiment of people I was seeing this morning, which is interesting because it definitely seems like Gen.G is going to win this first game. It's looking very good for Gen.G in this first game. Like, so much, like, this early game has gone so much drastically better than I ever could have imagined. And it seemed like if G2 wanted to get something done, they had to be proactive maybe 15 to 30 seconds prior to that dragon with a global ult and Italy's item advantage, and they didn't find anything, and the dragon just went to Gen.G again. Maybe the series just starts 1-0 Gen.G. We'll see. Okay, okay. Going to pick onto Clid and beat him up really fast. Doesn't even feel like that that is any reason to work out. Gen.G is mainly in the area and was doing such a good job of not letting that happen, but, you know, mistakes will happen eventually. Tried to get BDD, couldn't quite get him, blow a TP, and now it does seem like Rascal almost. Also seems like Rascal doesn't have Legend Tenacity here, right? But I don't even know. What do you run on Volibear after Grasp? I have no idea what the runes are, but he's stunned for a long time, so there's a lot of CC on G2's side. The only real CC that'll be applied to Volibear most likely are going to be TF card and sometimes Gen.W. Probably Panth won't be looking for him. But if he's not running Legend Tenacity, he didn't build Merc Dreads, so he will be very easy to control. He's going to have to be on full peel duty, as is to be expected. And maybe Volibear is just aware of what his role is this game. Understands that he's not diving in anyways, he's just being front line for Azir.
All you see is Clid trying to secure his red buff and not recognizing that the bot side of the map does not belong to him. So, good pick from G2.
G2 still being very proactive, despite the fact that they are 3 dragons down. Alright, so Camille does have her Triforce, which is the most meaningful item spike Camille gets the entire game. Obviously she just continues to scale, specifically off levels as the game progresses, but the most immediate power spike she gets, and the most important one, is the Triforce. So, as long as they just keep letting Wonder be alone here, 2 items is really when you start dealing with Volibear. This one starts feeling super good because he's lifesteal. Whatever item Camille builds second is going to be a lifesteal one, regardless of if it's Ravenous Hunter or Death Stance. Maybe since he's splitting so much and G2's committing so hard to this strategy, Ravenous Hunter second will be the item buy.
Not the truest support I have ever seen in my life. I don't know what is. Like, no one else has Grievous Wounds. They're playing against Tarek. They're playing against Tarek. There's a lot of healing, okay? He delayed his blade.
Just like randomly hearing the casters now, saying Grievous Wounds is super good against Tarek. Does he apply that much healing? I never really considered him that sort of hero. You'll probably want Grievous Wounds in a little bit for Kalista. I don't know if it's necessary right now. Maybe versus Volibear as well, but Volibear is mostly pulled around the map. Anywho.
going forward. There's a stun on Clid. Babby caught out in the jungle and taken down. Life will follow
Cool.
shortly after.
This is exactly what I expected G2 to be able to do for the past 15 minutes. It's just happening at 22 minutes for some reason. I was like thinking about random stuff, but I would like to see how this happens. So Gen.G started setting up setting up their ward line in front of Baron. Caps ults as G2's walking up. Volibear's still pulled towards the bottom lane with no teleport up, so this is the prime moment for G2 to go in because it'll be a 4v5 at worst. And the second Caps uses TF ult, he knows exactly where everyone is, and this looks like a super free play at this point. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad. Gen.G wanted to push the ward line up to be able to see Baron, but there's just so much dive and global ultimates. Like Gen.G did such a good job of playing safely in the early game, but now that the Baron was up, they felt pressured to actually put some vision onto it, and because of that, they were just too extended to continue farming. It's really too bad because BDD is super close to a death cap. That was like a huge spike that Gen.G was probably waiting for. Probably like BDD having that death cap and then Ruler having his second item. That was probably like a very viable spike for Gen.G to be looking at making plays around. G2, obviously after that giant swing, is now in a significantly better spot to win this game. Before they only had a little bit of a gold lead, and I was worried about Azir's capabilities, but now is looking much more in G2's favor. So G2 is now very quickly committed everyone towards Dragon, right? So Dragon isn't necessarily a priority when you have Baron up, because Baron doesn't actually help you secure Dragon other than pushing lanes up, right? You mainly want to use the Baron power play to get turrets, or at least crack open the base and start, start defeating your enemy. But since it is Soul Point, it's very important that G2 just all group around it. I vibe with Gen.G not just like jumping in and trying to 50-50 of the Dragon. They probably don't need to be quite that desperate yet, but at some point in the future, it'll be very reasonable to just try 50-50ing one of the final Dragon. Ooh, why did this happen? Yeah, I mean, Rascal should have pieced Solicit it. It's a little silly. There's no other objectives. I mean, I guess they'll buy a lot of time. I mean, that's good, right? Because this is Baron time. This is almost, I'm not gonna lie, this is actually starting to feel like a winning play for Gen.G, just because it wasted so much Baron time. He was worth dying there. That actually seemed pretty good.
So G2, what are they now going to do with the Baron? Because they don't really care about the top side of the map. They have a wave bot, but there's no wave in mid. So BDD can actually take this tower without really being punished for it, but it will force Clid and the Life rather to reset and look to defend some of these objectives. They're going to be able to get back.
So both mid laners do have TP up, so if they meet each other in the top lane, they're going to be able to get to the fight.
It's going to be very... Ooh, wow, Rascal's wanted 10 seconds. Okay, so I thought that Clid would actually use his ultimate and they'd look to set up a flank, but Gen.G don't actually have any deep wards at all. If you have a look at the minimap, the entire bot side is vision free for the side of Gen.G right now. All their control is up towards the top lane, and this means that being able to punish G2 for pushing these towers is non-existent, so good control there from G2 to mitigate any potential flanks.
Golden's just exploded there. 6,000 ahead now for G2, and Gen.G, they do still have options. They still have a very strong team fighting composition. They still have a 2-item Abaddon's Death Cap and the Nash's too. If they can find a good team fight, they can definitely still win out.
Well, that's the question. Can they find the good team fight, right? Because so far,
All right, so we're right now in a game where one team has a lot of proactive options, and the other team doesn't. So I want to say, even if Gen.G get to a really nice point in scaling, it's going to be very tough to initiate with Volley Bear and Clist Ult. That is not going. Azir is going to be annoyed trying to follow that up. It won't put Azir in his preferred position. Azir wants people to run into him. He wants to just farm until he can just walk up and you're too scared to dive onto him. That's how Azir wants to play, right? So even when Gen.G starts hitting spikes here, they're not actually going to really have proactive options. And they're just going to need to keep scaling. And this really does just feel like the story of the game, right? Regardless of like what champs counters who, or like at what points in the game what heroes are good, one team has a lot of proactive options and the other doesn't. And G2, it took a while, but they are now officially making great use of their proactive options. And they're now setting their 1-3-1 setup is very difficult to punish because there's just not very strong initiate out of Gen.G. And even if they catch an uneven numbered amount of people out on G2's side, there's still so much global pressure that G2 will be able to even the numbers very quickly. Right, so it does seem like G2 at this moment have to make a mistake for something bad to happen, like a classic like G2 like overcommitment tower dive, die to Nexus turret sort of thing. All right, so Gen.G, this is pretty interesting. Gen.G understand the importance of getting this Infernal Drake, right? The Soul, and they're also now on the Azir Deathcap spike as well as Calista double item. It's not going to be the spike that they wanted it to be. They would have wanted to fight. In an ideal scenario, they would have had these items and fought on them before their opponent had so many items over them, because like basically every G2 member has like 3 items. Except Camille, whose build is super expensive. And you want to fight immediately when you get the item spikes, not like once they've been lingering in your inventories for a while. It is a bizarre fight for Gen.G to want to take, but they have some spikes. The game is quickly going out of their control. Perhaps they are not interested in attempting a 50-50 smite fight. Obviously, it's not quite a 50-50. Nidalee has better burst as well as is currently 2 levels up. But Gen.G is not interested in that route, and they're saying, let's just initiate, try and get Taric ult on both halves of our team fight, the front line plus the back line, and see how it works out. Ruler sees perks. So Gen.G have literally no vision here, right? So I think Ruler was sort of hoping that G2 was less grouped, maybe placing some wards in front of Dragon, but they're already very grouped. And it's a little bit of a Hail Mary, but yeah, when you're behind, and if you don't want to just try 50-50ing the Dragon, sure, right? So Under goes very early. Probably doesn't have to. Probably can play a little bit more zone control. He's already here very early, and I would be a little scared of Azir, but he is level 16, so it'll be quite tanky. Yeah, Wonder immediately has to flash out. A big Drowsy comes out. Perks actually ults while the Drowsy's going off, so his ult will be cancelled, because Jhin ult was going to be kind of devastating there. I think this Drowsy looks like it won't really get anything off. Once again, like, Gen.G's better at peeling back than going forward. And Rascal's probably not going to be able to get much done on, even if on the side lane they're trying to run a Caps despite Perks being asleep. Mickey still's ult, by the way, so even if Mickey goes to like zone and ward off people potentially coming around his backline members, he will be able to ult to get into this fight, and he's aware of that and does as he must. That's a flash out of Calista. Doesn't jump the Calista though. He still has E. That was a really early flash because Pantheon does still E up. But yeah, they managed to use the zone out of Pantheon jumping on backline to get a Zir, and it definitely looks like they're going to clean everyone else up. TF's looking really good in this position. Wonder backs and is going to be able to 1v1 anyone he fights. Literally just pops ruler. And that's got to be game. I mean, I guess we can watch this last fight. I don't know if it matters. Oh, Gen.G rush Baron. I wasn't even paying attention. I thought G2 ran to Baron after Gen.G do a Hail Mary Baron. So just some Hail Mary plays because they feel like the game's doomed, right? I don't like flaming people for going for low percentage stuff when the game's looking really bad, right? That's like Reddit level analysis. Oh, BDD gets a nice combo into perks, and they do kill him. Oh, that's pretty well played. Okay, let's see it again. So G2 is not grouped together. Not that their comp really necessitates it, and BDD does get a nice pick onto perks. It seems like a mistake on perks more than anything else. He just, yeah, he really overcommits for like an auto attack W. Pretty unnecessary. BDD gets a super fast kill. He's just very comfortable on that hero. But then the backline's opened up, and it's like hard to peel back because they're taking Baron like magic resist damage. Caps just has like a ton of gold, so he's one-shotting. A lot of a gold difference. Well played on BDD to find that angle. A little bit of a mistake on perks. Cool. Hate not having coffee. Let's go to game 2.
Very well done by G2 when we think more. Really
so I think there was positive things to pick out from what Gen.G did that game. It wasn't like a total disaster because they did a lot of great stabilizing in the early game. But I think a lot of like the theoretical issues that would happen when Gen.G and G2 meet already happened. Just like certain champ pool matchups and like Gen.G's potential inability to deal with G2's proactivity. I think like a lot of expected stuff happened, right? And also like keep in mind like it wasn't just like Gen.G getting smashed in lane. They actually did really great in lane, in all 3 lanes. So that was what led them to be able to stabilize it all. It was just way too many proactive options, and you know, if you've watched these teams play before, you have to imagine that G2 is going to be more potent with those proactive options than Gen.G is, and Gen.G already did a nice job of stabilizing their last early game, and it just didn't work. So if they switch up that probably necessitates them switching up the draft this game because so much did go correctly last game. Okay, so we have literally the exact same bans as last game. This time Gen.G is going to have the Ornn ban make a little more sense and say, okay, we are playing towards topside. No more island, topside. That is our immediate adaptation. With the way Gen.G like to play, maybe they'll try and get a Galio in here and run like a Galio-Camille combo style comp. Okay, so of the farm junglers up, we talked about last draft, right? You usually see like a farm jungler first pick. This time, right? Adaptation of what's happening in the series so far. Camille comes out first, and now G2 have options. They can either go Lilia. So obviously you can pick any hero you want, but of the obvious things you can go Lilia or Nidalee. And if Jankos is comfortable on Lilia, cool. If you want to go Nidalee, you're kind of saying like, all right, let's throw down top lane, you know, which Camille isn't the greatest lane 1v1er of all time, but she's pretty excellent at setting up 2v2s with your jungler, or at least setting up and killing her opponent with the jungler before the other jungler gets to interact. Shen. So, definitely saw Shen banned yesterday in Fnatic's game, but didn't actually end up getting picked at any point. But that will be global pressure that's able to be transmitted to other parts of the map. Pretty decent laner into Camille, and Wonder's quite proficient on the hero. And we already talked last draft about how meaningful TF is if he's up and what he means with Camille. So right now Gen.G has basically drafted all of G2's comp, but we kind of know historically that G2 pilots a comp like that a little better than Gen.G does. Okay, so at Worlds, right, you have some options when it comes to matching TF's global ultimate, right? You can go Galio, regardless of how good you think Galio might be in this match, but you also have the option to just go Silas and take TF's ult and follow him around the map, which is a decent counter. My big issue here is that those are those are not very appealing ults for Silas to take. TF's ult is great for matching TF's mobility, but none of those ults are like real power teamfight ults for Silas. So it's very easy for Gen.G to finish off a draft with very little for Silas to take in the way of ults. I suppose I should also mention that based on what we've seen out of G2, Silas is a little bit of a flex pick. I wouldn't recommend playing it into Camille though, but Shen is absolutely a flex pick for Jankos as well. I guess it doesn't make sense. You'd never want to play Lilia into Camille. I don't know. G2 does crazy stuff. What do I know? Kalista is a super reasonable ban here, right? Follows up with all the initiate and engage of Gen.G, and they have their comp will play out similar to G2's last game, so the scaling options will be there. Senna is banned for the exact same reasons Gen.G banned Senna against G2 last game. Pantheon banned to slow down the ability to all the stuff we talked about last game, right? When you play side laners, you want ways to help them with global pressure. So you want to draft global pressure for yourself and nullify your opponents. And yeah, Pantheon can offer that. Banning Thresh. So Thresh does have... So Thresh is a more specific targeted ban here and means a couple things. He's not the world's greatest peeler, but he's not he's like a very good peeler, but he's also not the definitive peeling heroes if you want to get rid of some more reactive options. The good thing about Thresh though is he can give peeling options while also having some ability to help your team go in. He's more, for the most part, I think he's best in like siege situations, but he does also dissuade your bot lane from picking safe side, right? So the three best safe side bot laners supports are Tahm Kench, Thresh, and I'm forgetting someone. Oh, I'm a really good analyst. Wait, who is it? It's Tahm Kench, Thresh, and someone else is really good at making you live. Oh, okay, I'm a really bad analyst, but there's three of them, I promise. I just need a champion list. And as far as those heroes go, Thresh is the best at actually following up plays, right? If you draft a Tahm Kench here, yeah, you've locked in safe side or you've locked in a safe bot lane if that's how you wish to play the game. But Tahm Kench won't be able to follow up on plays, and G2 is a very forward comp, right? Silas is a champion that basically just goes forward, and Jhin is a hero that follows up on plays like that. Jin's also a pretty safe pick here because at most there will be a tank support, and otherwise it'll be pretty safe for him to... it'll be pretty safe for that Jhin doesn't want to fight tanks, right? So he has a pretty safe game to play out. I'm shocked that Ashe is being picked because Silas had no good ults. Once again, I'd probably need a champion list to theorycraft this one. Ashe looks really good for Gen.G's comp, but I think at this point you could just draft to make Silas totally useless. Tom Kench. So we just talked about this. Tom Kench is... Oh, they totally... So Tom Kench would have been just to... Would have given Gen.G the ability to play completely towards top side and totally sack bot lane safely. But he would not have fit the style the rest of the comp wants to play. They say, actually, never mind, and go Leona, who totally does fit the style that they want to play. But once again, they've given a very good ult for Sylas, and exactly what Sylas wants to do, which is go forward. Last pick here. Yeah, I think the Tom Kench was a little bit of a hover denial from G2 because they banned Thresh, and then it would make sense maybe to pick Tom Kench. G2 does seem to just want to play more towards the top side and keep bot lane safe from TF roams if possible, but Tom Kench will not follow the theme of the rest of the heroes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I like Gen.G's comp way better. I think I'm going to give this kind of comp... I mean, like, if you get all these pieces, it's a very hard team to beat, right? It's very similar to what G2 drafted last game, and I liked what G2 drafted last game. It's a very similar comp we've seen many times this tournament, and I think it's super tough to beat. I'm pretty inclined to say that I like Gen.G's comp better. Tom Kench isn't going to have much to do this game. He is just stopping TF and friends from making plays bot lane. Sylas will have a lot more to do this game than you would have expected. I think the biggest portion of G2's comp at this point is with the Tom Kench lock-in. They've basically hard committed to a 1-3-1 because Sylas is a great side laner and so is Shen. The only issue is Gen.G also has really excellent side lane options because Camille's a straight split pusher, especially if she makes it far enough into the game, she'll be able to deal with Shen no problem. And TF, of course, has that global threat. So he's also a really good split pusher because he doesn't need to be at the fights to still end up being there. The one factor that I like about G2's 1-3-1 a lot is that the 3-core of Tom Kench, Lilia, and Jhin can play. Those three heroes together can play more reactively and ward off initiates on them in global plays. Even though the G2's comp as a whole is very proactive and initiate oriented, the 3-core in a split push where it's Tom Kench, Jhin, and Lilia either there or nearby, that can play very reactively and make initiates very difficult for Gen.G. So that aspect of G2's comp is quite strong, but in general, Gen.G's comp looks terrifying to deal with. A lot of it will come down to Caps' abilities to make plays on Sylas, because Sylas is quite variable in how he plays out in the game, because he's a lot of skill expression. Really the only thing I didn't like about Gen.G's draft was giving options to Sylas, giving ults to him, because the first three heroes were not giving him proper damage ultimates, and I think Sylas would have ended up playing out kind of lackluster if Gen.G had continued that trend. But it's also possible that if I actually looked at a champion list, I wouldn't have been able to find anything that great for Gen.G to play here and round out their comp.
We'll want a little bit of revenge. Official is a small, narrow window you can walk up, trying to be a tasty catfish, a little bit of bait perhaps as G2 step all the way around life and ruler.
Wait, this is pretty interesting. So Tom Kench is in the river here, and the rest of G2 is actually in the brush, right? You wouldn't expect Tom Kench to be there and the rest of the team to be towards bottom, right? Because like you expect the bot laners to be in this area, so if you see the Tom Kench, it becomes unexpected that other champions are there.
Window you can walk up through the bottom lane here. here. And Wonder will have the taunt life spin propped on that auto attack. There's the slow. Flashes away.
Okay, so I don't... Did Wonder scale taunt? I don't think so.
There is a small
But Perks does scale the W first. So Wonder does have the option to try and taunt here. That would just be Flash, but instead they elect to have Perks level up W first, and Life flashes that instead.
They were able to do this in game 1. And they were able to
Now, since everyone on G2 has been seen, Gen.G's going to walk up and place wards if possible. Of course, G2 preemptively placed wards on their own half of the jungle before doing that, like any good team would. And they're just going to peel back, and it's probably really just going to be Life without a flash, which is not bad, but it is still a pretty safe bot lane that G2's drafted. So I don't know how much proactivity Life would be able to make anyways.
Often on Lilia, especially when I play with Ender, he likes to go for the Razor Beaks because you get so much out of clearing those multi-minion camps from your jungle talisman. You get all of that healing, you can just sweep them away. He can work his way.
I'm interested to see
Leona, only the Zenith player that
Wonder also not getting the better.
Ooh, why is the early laning phase kind of... I guess they're not going to show us, but I don't know what happened early top here.
Not that surprising. Wonder also not getting the better of Rascal at this level 1 point. Not really that surprising.
Shen usually has whoa, a lot of stuff's happening. Shen usually wins this level 1 here, but Shen's more of a 2 hero for sure. So Rascal is 2 and he actually starts Eing in, but then they quickly jump back to bot lane. So Life doesn't have flash. It's pretty scary. They did go in on 2, but yeah, Life just doesn't have flash. Ooh, Jankos has shown up. Rather unexpectedly, right? Because he only has cleared one half of his jungle. And yeah, I mean, this is just very unexpected. They probably thought that Wonder was walking towards top. So Gen.G does have a ward in Jankos' jungle. I wonder if I was just saying names incorrectly there. It's unexpected for Jankos to be here. They have a ward in his jungle, right? So they would be able to see him cross over to the top side of his map, and they probably expected him to be walking there at this moment, but he actually does his 3 camps and goes bottom. Right, it's not quite Scuttle, so it doesn't make sense for him to be here. Ooh, no, disaster. That's a free Dark Harvest for Lilia though. Oh, that's brutal, man. Ooh. Jankos plays the rest of this really awkwardly. Actually gets kind of sketchy. Just like random food for thought, if Life had flash and then stayed, it was probably they probably kill all 3 members of G2 and none of them die. That's how one-sided that fight was. Yikes. This early game always goes a little TF favored. This is expected, and the better the player, the better you expect them to do. So of course BDD's doing well. But yeah, what happened here? I wanted to see.
Let's have a look at this Axe replay from Rascal, and remember that he did get level 2 first. As the bot lane action was taking off, he is able to get the stun, lands it onto Wonder.
Gets it.
The fight. Is able to get good damage down. Wonder's still on level 1.
Oh yeah, he started W, so it's not that great a trade. League's kind of like a... Sometimes it's so hard to conceptualize how things will go if you haven't played the matchups religiously. Like, it looks so good, right? But, he gets the grass proc. It looks so good, but like... And like, even the minions turn on him kind of late because like the coding's weird, but... I don't know. It just doesn't end up going that well, surprisingly. Partially just because he doesn't have Q leveled. Now Wonder's going to hit 2 and go in immediately. That will be his plan. Rascal gets shield back. Rascal obviously was timing that. That's why he wasn't scared. Otherwise he would have been. And Wonder probably thought it wasn't quite up yet, but it was. Rascal hasn't scaled Q, right? He only has W and E. Ooh, grasp auto to live. Oh, flash. Oh, wow. That was a really interesting fight. It's very small margins. hard for me to picture how it was going to play out, even though I've played this matchup a decent amount of times.
I really want to give credit to Life there, considering he didn't have flash. He should have been an easy kill for G2 on the bot side of the map, but once again we're seeing Ruler and Life kind of come out.
Yeah, the animation was a little weird.
That bot lane matchup could have been a lot worse, but now there's no summoners anywhere. Only mid laners have their flashes and TPs up Medic. That could mean even more action towards the bot side of the map.
Clid has his flash as well, and Wonder is trading here in the top lane once again. Rascal looking for the knock-up. There it is. Wonder
Rascal actually is Q now, setting up for Clid. But hey, Jankos is here. Jankos actually playing a pretty solid series so far, because I think he's the player we were all a little worried about.
Blossoming blows. Rascal. Remember, he's got no flash. He's got no hook shot. And the chase is on. Watch out as Jankos dives forward. Teleport coming in. Jankos looking for the kill, but can't quite get Rascal. In the end, he gets him.
It's also going to be a TP. The Nilly Spear is connected. This must be a kill. Caps is here now. Dodges the spear.
There's the taunt alongside the stun.
Cool.
Okay, so a lot more action in this early game compared to last game.
Was it 1-for-1 when Shen died the first time?
No.
No.
4 kills on the board for both sides, and well, where do I even begin when it comes to breaking that down? So basically, what happened is Clid was able to get double scuttle. That's important to note because right now he's been taking.
What's the kill Shen has? Yeah, it was a 1-for-1. Wait, I'm so confused. I'm getting super confused. Wait, what?
That's a double for Ruler in the bottom lane in the top lane.
Oh, it's a 1-for-1.
There's additional 3 taking is able to get good damage down. Damage for this. Ooh, and then the flash.
Oh, they cut it. It's a 1-for-1. He tanks a turret shot. Oh god, I got so confused. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a 1-for-1. No, that was like propaganda because they cut to Gen.G's coaches being happy, which they should be. Camille's like such a good scaling hero that 1-for-1s will be favorable for her. That's like a one way to think about League of Legends, right? It depends on the scenario, but snowball your heroes that need scaling, when you 1-for-1, it's usually more in favor of the snowball your scaling one, right? So for example, a Kali against basically all matchups, when a Kali 1-for-1s, it tends to be in a Kali's favor. But that was so funny. Yeah, that was literally straight propaganda. They went to Gen.G's coaches like, yeah, you know, like, good job. But they cut out the part where Rascal died. And you know, the worlds are taking place in China, and this is a Korean team, so we can't even say that it was like Chinese favoritism. It was just someone at Riot that really likes Gen.G.
Easy kill in the 2 versus 2 if it wasn't for Yank. TP's up on the board for both sides, and well, where do I even begin when it comes to breaking that down?
Alright, so that was interesting. Rascal just like goes crazy, and ends up putting his team in a really bad spot. And Jankos is where he needs to be at that moment, and he's been doing a pretty good job of that the past 2 games.
But Jankos is there to counteract Rascal, who didn't have flash. Then BDD TP's in to actually mitigate or like turn the fight in their favor. But BDD is forced to use the flash because he commits the flash means that 1-2 rings. Why about Dark Seal? Dark Seal. Of course
Caps
they don't
has
stack
2
in
Dark
turn on the
Seals.
stacks, but you do get that additional healing off the back of it, so it's still valuable.
I guess he's just feeling it today.
It's kind of the one that's lost the most in all of this, because there was a huge wave that just crashed into the top lane tower. You can see that he's 10 CS down, but also a level down, and his level 6 is going to be heavily delayed. Meanwhile, BDD has just hit level 6. He's roaming bot, and he's looking.
Oh wow, already?
To the top lane tower. You can see that
so Caps does make it back to lane here, but they are not ready for BDD to immediately go for the teleport. I think he walks over ward. Yeah, he does. So they do actually scout him.
BDD has just hit level 6. He's roaming bot, and he's looking for a gank.
Caps looking to try and join them, but he can't get in there in time. Mickey,
yeah, Mickey.
Already down as Ruler takes the kill. BDD will fall as well. Caps didn't steal.
Just hit level down.
So like, since TF ults, he does see Lilia's here. It's too bad that that the camera takes a while to show us the bot play, because I'd like to see him exactly how it sets up, because BDD will see Jankos as he's coming in. And you have to assume that G2 knew this was coming, because it was just such an obvious timing on TF with the way he backed off the wave as Caps walked up, and then he walks right onto a ward. So it was, and Jankos then is just already walking there because he hasn't cleared that portion of his bot camps yet. So they were totally expecting it, and then BDD sees that they're expecting it, and it's like, I think I can do it anyways. And the main net positive coming out here is that they get out TF's ult for a 1-for-1, which is not bad. Caps now is doing a Caps roam, and no TPs or anything. We just get here, and Silas ganking bottom against Ashy always feels great because you get that Ash ult, which he's still holding at this moment. There we go, point blank. They're probably going to play it slow. They can maybe get it. Gen.G's still running, as they should be. That looks dead. Ooh, barely gets him. Still running forward. Maybe we should stop. Cool. So as I said before, a lot of this game's outcome is going to come down to Silas's performance, and that's already a pretty good way to start it off.
Went much more towards focusing for himself, but this game he's all about the ganks. Well, that one you can see consistently land to clear.
Yeah, I don't need the pro view, I got it.
Cooldown probably not worth diving at this point.
The important thing about that for G2 as well is, remember, Ruler got such a sizable advantage early on. He was 2 kills up as Rascal is taunted when they're diving underneath the tower, but Ruler was in such a strong...
This trade is a lot better than you might think it is, just because the taunt is going to cause the creeps to hit Rascal. He jumps out immediately, knows it's a huge issue.
Has been able to get some of that gold back. He's got a CS lead, he's got himself a kill. Yes, he's still behind in the pure 2v2.
Gen.G recognizing the comp needs to get it going. Alright, pretty good. They started Rift and then catch Jankos out as he tries to stop them. Pretty good. They've rotated life up. Mickey has stayed bottom or not completed his rotation top though. Looks like Mickey's looking through the jungle for wards maybe, or are we just trying to pressure Ash? Guess a little bit of both. Ash not quite 6, Jin is. Caps doesn't have TF ult or anything right now though, so that's not a concern for Gen.G. Now there's like Clid's doing like a hard invade, and Jankos has walked back towards top. Jankos could have potentially walked bottom and then gone to Clid's jungle, or even started Dragon off of this. Those were some options. Just because Wonder is probably not diveable in this situation, but he walks top instead, maybe assuming that Clid won't go for the red buff after, and will just back after the Herald. I guess I would say that's a bit of a mistake on Jankos' part, kind of a bad read. Caps potentially looked like he was roaming, but was just getting the honey fruit. He is playing very up, but Jankos is here. Needed to rotation to the bottom half of his map anyways. Probably didn't want to do the Krugs after his red was dead, right? Because it would take him so far away from where he needed to be.
It's pretty interesting there how they actually gave a lot. You can see that with Clid on the bot side of the map and with Destiny coming up, this is a situation where Gen.G is definitely looking to set up for this trade. They're going to drop a couple wards over the wall. BDD has just looked to reset. His TP will be up relatively soon. As many G2 members are going to reset. Ooh,
yeah, Mickey's resetting again.
Perks. Definitely a big item purchase, going to give him a very potent early game spike.
The crab did go over to G2, so it will be tough for Gen.G to just set up on this. It is what they want to do, but it's not going to be like, you know, G2's knows that they're on it, as opposed to not being certain of the exact timing of when it got started. But they actually do it super quickly, so it's not a problem at all. And it was a good call for them not to be warded off by the Scuttle Crab. I don't know if they had a good read on the resets, but it was a good call nonetheless. They knew with certainty that Leona had a reset and G2's support didn't.
Fight down here towards find the connection onto Ruler.
Kind of random ult.
Oh, there are those drinks that you were talking about, Nick.
I'll be honest, the screen wasn't responding to my touch. I was wondering whether I'd lost feeling in my fingers.
Right, talk us through the stats, man.
So as you can see, G2 first dragon percent is the FD. Only
33% Baron. I don't know. G2 always wins without Baron. It's so funny.
G2 get about half the dragons in all of their games. Gen.G get about 63%, about 2/3, and Baron. Whereas Gen.G.
Ooh, what happens here? So TF literally just walks around. He's not ulting, but G2's bot lane's walking up here as well. Clids is the one that goes down due to the the Shen ult, and Camille hasn't quite made her rotation yet, and that's pretty good. Ooh. Perks walks way up. I mean, he gets the kill on BDD, but that's just feeding a kill to Rascal. Oh, wow. So Caps tries to get on Life, and Life just flashes in on Mickey, but it's very ambitious. That's another kill for Rascal, though. Okay, that was kind of messy. It's definitely good that Rascal got some of these kills. I think that's going to be very helpful. I didn't really pay attention, but Rascal went for the Tiamat build. Basically, no high-level Camille's do the Tiamat first build anymore. I mean, it's preference. I'm not saying it's actually better. It's just you usually see Triforce rushes because it's such an important spike on Camille. You just tend to not go Tiamat anymore until your second item.
Comes through, and at this point I think G2 could have just stopped and backed off, but in typical G2 fashion, always actually Life that flashes in to try and get the re-engage, and perhaps that was a little overzealous because he then baits Rascal to lock Wonder underneath the tower.
Caps is in just such an excellent spot now, and of course he's built a Magi's. I would be so scared of Caps if I was Gen.G at this point. And as far as player steal goes, it's quite reasonable to be scared of him here. Ooh. Rascal just has some really weird misses this game. He's playing confidently for sure, which is important. But he's having some misses on when he's supposed to be going in. On the other half of the map, Gen.G is just going to try and kill Wonder. BDD tanks at a weird time. Does get the card off. They do jump in. That's Leona ult and TF ult, plus they get a lot of people low. It's not bad. But Rascal ended up dying anyways after Caps rotates down. So Rascal really just had to peace out. But, you know, maybe they thought Caps was rotating top. I doubt it, though, just because there's pretty good ward coverage top for Gen.G. And they would have known that he didn't have TF ult. I don't think he had TF ult, right? No, he takes Camille ult during the fight. Yeah, he just walks here. Yeah, like taking Camille ult as Silas doesn't feel that good. It's not very helpful.
G2 don't get that bot tower, but it is overall being a very different game compared.
Both teams taking last week went on a website got Jai Soul Stealer.
How long have you had them? It's great that you brought up the mid laners because it's been a really big debate, I think, around PDD and Caps higher than PDD, but I think that they've just been very different players and they're often very difficult to compare.
TF's now up in the bot lane. They have the 1-3-1 set up for both teams. Sort of. Caps is actually walking towards bot side for Dragon. Camille still has TP up. Caps had TP too, so he didn't necessarily have to be here, but he wanted the blue buff preemptively. So maybe G2 can set this up quickly and... oh, okay, they're just going to have Wonder back and go top. Sure. They are. G2's ideally going to want to have Shen match Camille because Silas isn't going to be very good into a side lane versus Camille. It'll be a little better right now just because Silas is so ahead. But Twisted Fate will be very scared side laning. So if they can get Silas versus Twisted Fate, that's probably ideal.
There was that one play down towards the bot side of the map where he ended up getting collapsed upon. There was that one play in the mid where he was working with Clid, but it was G2 that do what they have to do, and they immediately collapsed onto Cam.
Once again, Clid is playing towards Wunder, but Wunder is definitely on the weak side this game as Shen.
Sort of. I guess G2 drafted for it not to be that way, but it kind of turned out that way.
I guess it's only that way later in the game, is what I should be saying. Alright, Rift Hail drop. Usually if plates are down already, you only drop Rift to get the Dragon. And what do you know, G2's walking towards Dragon.
Towers down. As soon as you make longer lanes in the top and bottom lane, you have so much more opportunity to get in behind your opponents, to use that destiny, to use the mobility of Nidalee through the jungle, and that's what Gen.G will be looking to do. Day of Infernals, it would seem.
Yep, looking good.
Before
for Rascal as well, as he hits level 11, and Wunder.
So who do we all think is going to win the game at this point? Because honestly, the gold's pretty even. Rascal is feeling himself, and he's doing pretty decent on items, so he will be very threatening in a moment. I'm mainly just terrified of Caps. It does kind of feel like Caps is running away with this game. If Gen.G can maybe get some good fights off and Rascal keeps his current gold pace, then they could then Gen.G definitely can win this game. So Caps hasn't taken TF ult yet, right? We have to keep bringing this up because it's important. He would have to TP to get here. Gen.G is looking for the play because Rascal has already rotated. There's like a little bit of a decision that Gen.G can make in how they play these fights, right? Like you can either have Rascal match Shen and just cancel Shen's ult, or you could preemptively have Rascal rotate there to the fight first, which will be easier for him with the Tiamat and the fact that Camille is such an excellent initiator, or even just follow up. The only issue is there's no way to stop TF ult. Not TF, I'm sorry, Shen ult. So during this fight, Gen.G preemptively know Shen ult is 100% dropping. There's nothing we can do about that.
Where the Razor Beaks would be, but already they're looking for perks. The Solar Flare comes down. Mickey still has the Devour here. Cleared with a spear from.
Or in this case, no, sorry, he is ulting. It's Cap CPing. So that's everyone. They get everyone out. Where does BDD end up? BDD goes pretty far back to try and heal. Yeah, I don't know. I think even leading up to this, it didn't really feel like it was going to work with the current game state. Maybe it's imperative that they blow Caps' flash, not flash, but TP at some point, so Gen.G felt pressured to force something. But it didn't seem like it was going to work because it's really just Shen coming in and having nothing stop his ult. And Camille isn't quite at critical mass yet. And yeah, Caps is just super fast. So even Camille won't be threatening in the side lane. Camille won't even be threatening at 3 items at this point. Just based on how fast Caps is scaling. What the hell happens here? So Rascal TPs and comes back around for the reinitiate. Ruler doesn't have ult though, so it's really awkward following this up. There's no Leona ult, no ult on Ruler. This is kind of the stylistic differences I was talking about these teams. When it comes to using proactive abilities, that's G2's comfort zone, and Gen.G is just not quite as strong in that regard. That's like the first useful thing Tahm Kench has done all game. I don't know, like G2's early game strat didn't even really work that well. It's just Caps played really well. Yeah, I mean, it really feels like there's only one way that fight was going. God, Caps is so strong. He's only got one more page for his Magi's to be fully stacked. Camille wasn't able to get the Ravenous on her back. Ooh, Ionia Camille.
Averages over a third of his team's damage in every single game, has 2 items here. And if anyone's going to be able to carry them out of this hole, it is the guy that has been with this team the longest. Remember, Ruler, a world.
Just a quick difference between Wonder and Rascal. Wonder opted for Merc Treads even though it didn't help him lane Camille, whereas Rascal did go Ninjas to help him lane Camille, but then wasn't able to, didn't really have tenacity for TF card. And, you know, miscellaneous stuff. I only bring up TF card because it's the most likely one to land on the top laners in both these games. So, BDD, like, regardless of his proximity, can get here quickly with the ult. I don't really think this 3-core has the... we talked about the 3-core on the pick screen, right? Like, it's more... This is more reactive, right? But as a 5v5, they're quite proactive. But yeah, that Lily ult won't do anything. And now they can just peel back for the dragon. It's actually not that many dragons have been done this game. So if you do feel that one team has better scaling options, Dragon Soul isn't quite going to be a win condition for a super long time. And Camille has the potential to become totally out of control in like 10 minutes, by the way. It can happen. At the very least, if Camille is able, even if Camille loses a side lane to Silas with this level of gold, dragging Silas away from the fight could actually be quite beneficial because he's so strong and he's such an important source of damage in this comp. I do want to say though, because I don't think it's brought up very often, Silas is actually one of the best scalers in the game. It's a little weird to say that because I guess the definition of scaling is kind of like, it's actually kind of a weird word because there's so many different item points. But Silas is a weak early game, and then like after like a couple items, even just first item, he gets like really, really strong. Is he necessarily like the best 6 item hero? Maybe not. But like level 16, getting his ult low cooldown, huge. His first 2 items, huge. I'm always like talking to you guys, and then I'm not really paying attention to what's happening in the game. So this is like a huge commitment, right? So they're running through Baron, they're planning on being at Baron anyways, and they see Rascal's extended, and they say, let's Tahm Kench ult. Lilia has Deadmans to get here. Shen can just follow up with ult if need be. Let's run at this dude, right? Tahm Kench, not a good initiation hero, but he's going to try his best. The E from Lilia doesn't quite land, otherwise almost certainly we would see a Lily ult come out and they try and burst down Rascal, and it would be a TP out of Caps because now his TP is back up, right? It's also important to note that G2's going for this because Caps' TP is back up, and he's the main, he's the main source of income on G2's team and has all the power right now. And there we just see Ruler throw an ult to distract them, but that's a pretty important initiate tool that's now been burned. Rascal's going to come back in with the initiate. Yeah, I mean, if he's going to go for that, he probably has to ult immediately. But Rascal decides not to ult, so... if they're going to attempt that, it probably has to be... Hopefully, like, Ruler doesn't ult. Right, hopefully Rascal lives without Ruler's ult, and then Rascal just ults here, and then like maybe doesn't stay in and just die to their damage, especially because he gets a magic shield, so he can't survive Jhin very well. And then maybe Gen.G's able to follow up. They didn't quite feel ready to pull the trigger there. Very indecisive. They wanted to go in. We're also scared of Caps' split push. Two not on the same page about what should be happening. They're not getting accomplished what they need to. Now they feel like they need to peel off, but like G2's right in front of Baron, so that's also a little scary.
Try to force that fight in the mid lane because, like, how do you attack the side lane? Like, there's a Shen ultimate and there's a Tahm Kench ultimate, and Caps can just steal Destiny too. So like, you try to catch a pick. Oh, 3 people on a side lane. Well, G2 can have 4, and like, you might just have to force yourself into these awkward. So,
yeah, like I don't know, they like it's so tough. Like it doesn't feel like 2v1ing Caps is all that viable right now. 3v1ing it maybe. They get Leona in here, and like Camille's not a bad side laner into Silas at all. At like 2 items, if Camille has an Executioners, which I should point out she doesn't, which is it's actually like impossible to kill Silas if they do want to target him in the side lane without an Executioners. But if they're not interested in that, maybe it's not a worthwhile use of gold. But like if they both have 2 items that choose Executioners, it's a totally reasonable side lane for Camille. It's just like at this gold value, it's so tough. Takes Camille's ult, flashes on Rascal to stop him from getting away with E, catching it with the Camille ult he stole. Now he's going to burst, goes through the magic shield. Camille's shield is already down. Caps has bursted through it. Gets Wonder to follow up with his own ult, dead. Super sick. Super sick. Now remember, Gen.G has drafted a comp that's basically all initiate. They're actually not that good at countering a dive here. Especially if people just go in for Caps, because Caps is so scary. Perks once again walking up like an absolute madman. He's definitely had some hiccups doing that, so, but it's fine here. Probably at worst he gets Ash Arid and devoured by Tom Kench or something. Oh, I didn't even realize that Mikhail's that came out earlier was Nidalee. I didn't even pay attention to Nidalee going Mikhail's. Very support oriented.
They're trying to burn Ruler's Flash here, but he can just step behind Clid and Life. Didn't find the mark as well, so
because the arrow doesn't land. That is a huge number out of Jin. Oh, this is actually looking okay. Cap still has TP though. So Ruler's not going to shoot it at Jankos. Probably, I mean, he just because there's a little distance between Mickey and Perks, maybe wants to hit Perks here, or maybe Mickey would be best. Just because whoever gets hit's probably getting Tom Kench ulted. BDD has a choice who to hit. He hits Perks to get at the Devour. Now they're going to try and follow up on Mickey, but Caps' TP is going now. It could have been maybe scarier if Caps' TP was even earlier. Oh, Caps didn't TP, I'm sorry. That was him casting back. He's buying an item, and then he's TPing. They think that the fight is prolonged enough that he can back first, and I've watched enough G2. They're very good on calls like that very specific style of call where it's like, hold the fight out. I can be there. Just give me a moment to get an item. I've seen G2 make this exact play before with Perks middle. They're very good at calling it. I almost want to just I'm pretty sure G2 should have this fight because everyone on Gen.G is going to be brought forward to continue this fight, and they're going to have like an open backline when Caps probably comes in on maybe like this pink ward. He's literally TPing on them with the speed. So right now it's actually a kill on Life because Gen.G started to peel off. Didn't quite get the arrow there, but they're now just able to go forward and they don't have reactive peeling options. That Jin's dealing a lot of damage. Yeah, pretty clean.
G2 just so quickly collapse and turn it in their favor. They're going to continue to extend the goal lead. Not going to go for the Baron though. Feel like it's a little too risky at this point in the game. Instead, just going to catch waves, look to reset. They may even catch Rascal out here.
Rascal underneath the tower. Watch out as Clid comes in as well, but Rascal's actually almost dead as Perks just steps forward.
Rascal's had some really bizarre plays this game.
You're greeting for a single tower. That's 40 seconds that your team does.
Yeah, I think you have to start Baron if Rascal trolls that hard. And once again, look at how far Soul is. It's pretty funny.
As G2 look to continue this snowball. I'm kind of just like, we looked at that draft, we were like, it feels like that they came in well prepared, they had a very good answer, and like let's just look at this fight. So it's Gen.G that collapsed first, but the Tom Kench mitigates the pick potential. Tom Kench is also tanking up a lot, and then one is able to join. Oh, hang on. It's the pick potential. Tom Kench is also tanking up a lot, and then one is able to join. Oh, hang on.
has been caught out. PDD going on the chase.
Okay, we got Mickey.
Trying to join the fray. It's Caps
Even in a
able to join this
4v5,
fight.
these are going to be hard fights to win, by the way.
And you can
But
see
it's looking pretty nice.
it's almost down. Life on
Wonder's
the front
ult
lines.
is
Gonna
down
get
now. Caps took Leona
Gargoyles don't
ult.
like to hit-
Caps has a pretty nice angle here. I guess it's maybe a matter of what Rascal can do, because if Caps goes in, Rascal will have an angle. Hopefully Wander's able to block it. Nidalee also not that threatening with their current build.
Back up.
What the hell? What does Rascal
Yakka's
do?
almost down. Life on the front lines. Gonna get slapped, but he can use Gargoyles there.
Oh, he E's on this and tries to E flash. This is definitely a mistake. He's definitely supposed to try and E on this. Or maybe if G2 go forwards, E on this. This flash never connects.
To heal himself back up.
Yeah, that was weird.
Now it's a great fight for Gen.G as they
Wait,
on the front lines. Gonna get slapped, but he can use Gargoyles third plate to heal himself back up. Now it's
Caps
a great
takes
fight.
the ult. Kills Leona. Okay. This is a pretty well placed ult. Rascal tries to go in, but I think that when you're like a diver and the gold values are this uneven, it's very hard. And now this is perfect situation for Jin, right? Setting up for your teammate as the other team's trying to get away. Perfect Jin scenario.
Perks isn't quite the sniper that Loken is or Huanfeng, but it gets the job done.
I think that was a Leona ultimate, but with all the AP of
Yes, it was.
Clyde.
So scary.
This is beautiful play there. I understand.
Yeah, Caps is just so incredibly strong.
G2 continued to take down a structure. Solar Flare's gonna hit on towards the back line. That's Perks caught out. You can see
Yeah,
Life.
now they can fight silly. Like we're just whatchamacallit, Silas E-ing onto Leona, and like we're so ahead on gold.
Ignite ticking while Caps uses the stopwatch to dodge the spear. He's gonna come back up and with the ammo. Oh my
Oh my
god!
gosh.
Oh, that
Oh
is
god, they have no
disgusting.
executioners.
That is the most illegal ammo I have ever seen. Clint dives in, Rascal dives in, but they've already done, and Caps is still alive. Number one
Okay.
seed as they go 2.
Cool. Is this a 3-0? I guess I'm not that surprised by a 3-0, but at the same time, I thought Top Esports was going to 3-0 Fnatic, so once again, what do I know? But maybe this is a more reasonable 3-0. And maybe it's not a 3-0. I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so here we go. This is game 3. Alright, so the draft is a little different. Gen.G electing to go which is game point. They are electing to go red side, and they ban Lilia away this time around. Which is going, and G2 is going to ban Nidalee. So the situation that ends up happening here is Lily gets banned, and then if Nidalee and Graves are both up, then G2 gets to choose who they want, or they can ban Nidalee, or Graves, one of the two. Have Gen.G choose, do they want to take all of the farming junglers off the table, which is probably advantageous for G2 because Jankos is such a strong gank jungler. So Gen.G had the option of final banning the Graves and then leaving Ornn up this game and just forcing a non-farm jungler fight, assuming neither team goes something like Kindred or something similar. But instead they ban Ornn, and G2 is just going to open up with the Graves. They can also play into the Graves if they want. They can leave Graves open and play Kindred. But yeah, they're going to go Graves. You have to imagine Gen.G is playing Kindred this game at some portion of the draft. TF is up for the third game in a row. I don't know. It's a really good pick, even if it didn't work last game. And there is also the Kindred. They can pick Kindred whenever they want. I guess you can say maybe you can flex Graves somewhere else and take Kindred, but honestly there's some pretty decent jungle counters to Kindred, so I probably wouldn't recommend that. He's better as a counter pick to Graves. And then the immediate response is Caps is feeling way too good on the Silas. They once again pick the Jhin as the follow-up. Ornn's already off the table, which basically forces Gen.G to probably be thinking about Volibear right here and now, which isn't too scary because they can ban out whatever top laners they want in the second rotation. But Volibear will feel a little awkward with this comp. As it stands, if they go Volibear, Kindred's job would be to be more follow-up for other characters, whereas with TF and Kindred currently picked, we can see more of like the create space, pick a bunch of ranged heroes, play around TF card style comp, which is a super good comp. And it does kind of look like they are thinking about a sort of comp like that. I think Ezreal's very unnecessary in that comp because TF already gives so much protection to AD carries as well as Kindred. Maybe Ezreal will be able to survive Sylas a little better. But I don't think it was necessary to be picked here, but if that's what they're feeling, that's what they're feeling. And realistically, Ruler is one of, if not the best Ezreal in recent League of Legends. Karma is off the table, so they can't just win bottom lane with Ezreal. Not something I'd be particularly scared of, but it's the ban nonetheless. Why does the equality always change? And then we also see the Pantheon ban again. Same reasons we've already talked about. So as far as Sylas ults go, Ezreal ult is not too bad. I'm surprised Gragas was a concern here. He is a really good peel hero. It does sort of... It is gonna... I don't want to say show G2's hand, but they are kind of implying that they're committing to full engage again. But I believe you've already basically done that the moment you draft Sylas, unless you literally want him to just side lane and do nothing else. So, as the Jhin counter, I was going to say, right, so when I said it's probably like the Volibear top, it can also be the Sion, right? But we don't quite see it. Instead, we see a lane that I absolutely hate, Tahm Kench Ezreal. It's overly safe. It's basically the safest lane you can draft in the game. Very, very reactive. You have no prio bottom whatsoever. And it's going to give a lot of options for G2 for the next draft. Potentially Bard looks decent. But I will say, Tahm Kench is so good at shutting it down hard initiate that regardless of lane priority, it might just be a good pick here in general. But you do kind of want to aim for somewhat lane priority when you draft Kindred, because the way to win games as Kindred is to get marks. So you usually want strong lanes, and then you want to help her secure those marks. So a lot of freedom with what G2 is able to do here. I actually think Rakan is a super smart pick that they decided to go with. It'll be hard initiate just like they need, and it'll have an easier time catching up with Ezreal than other champions. It is a lot of commitment towards a hard initiate comp though, and there's basically all reactive peel answers on the side of Gen.G, and I think it's kind of going to be similar to Game 1 in that regard. And lastly, we got the Volibear. Yeah, I mean, that's going to lane Renekton better than Sion. I think that's the only thing to think about right here. Because you probably just want a beefy frontliner at this point, even if I don't think Volibear is the world's greatest peel hero. Yeah, so basically a full reactive comp out of Gen.G. With the only lane having early game prio will be mid, and it'll only be early. So Kindred's going to have an exceptionally hard time getting marks. And yeah, this is very similar to Game 1, where I think a lot of Gen.G's comp counters G2's, but there's so much proactivity on G2 in the early that G2's getting out of this early game. Their 1-3-1 is going to be pretty strong out of G2 again. The only global threat out of Gen.G this time is mid, and there's no hard side laner that they're propping up with this middle, so it wasn't a necessity for G2 to draft additional global threats like Shen or Pantheon support, and they can just have Sylas match him. I will say the one nice thing is the best Silas ult here, probably just Ezreal in the way of damage, and then TF for matching Twisted Fate in the early game. The other alts aren't going to be that great with Silas. Maybe Volibear's ult has a high ratio. I'm actually down to look this up. I'll look this up. Doop, doop, doop. Okay. Okay, I take it back. That'll actually be a really good Silas ult. Volibear will be really good with Silas. Especially here, because it'll match exactly what Silas wants to do, and that is jump in. Yeah, so, yeah, my biggest concerns, too much proactivity, especially in the early game for G2, and I don't think Kindred will be able to get marks. I don't think there's enough lane prio. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about G2's comp here. Game 3, boys. Maybe the last game. Let's find out.
He sneaks behind people. BDD won't have heard that sound that we heard as Mickey jumped over the wall. And now Mickey can just flank over there. Wait for the W cooldown. It will be about 3 seconds off now, I think. Played a bunch of a card last night in Clash, so here he goes. They're going to step forward. Immediately forces the flash out of BDD.
That's 3 different level 1s we've now seen from G2, and 3 different flashes that they've burnt. In game 1, it was Rascal. In game 2, it was Life. And now in game 3, it is BDD. So, good stuff from G2. I love all this level 1 innovation that we have been seeing. And it's going to pay off, because the fact that you lose your flash this early on leaves you very susceptible to ganks. While Grey is not considered the strongest gank jungler, the great thing about Silas is you do have good setup with your E, so you have to see.
Yeah, I mean, TF is definitely going to want that flash to follow stuff up.
Nemesis loses flash early on and just defending game 5, and he was repeat ganked. Died 3 times, I think, before the 15-minute mark in this game. Jankos has the opportunity to try and put specs where the enemy jungler can be. He will be pretty wary of stepping up towards Caps and Jankos.
Okay. Okay, Clid. Alright.
Immediately moving over towards the enemy.
Let's get fancy.
Very early ward there to see where Jankos was starting. The question is,
let's see if Jankos expects it at all. Nope, he's doing wolves.
His wolves, so he's going to have no idea that this is happening. And Clid should be able to walk away with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unexpected. Good call. So now Jankos will see that this is down, and Clid is going to chase after him. And he's going to go for the Grom. So now Renekton is pretty great at this stage in the game, so there's Ruler and Life are doing a pretty good job already. I imagine past... so at the start of the game, they're going to hit 2 first and have an advantage. They probably won't have too much of an advantage past this. But Rakon's quite a weak laner as well. Well, what the hell happens? So Jankos walks the long way around to bait Clid, because Clid probably thinks Jankos has maybe reset to bot side. Tried to do Krugs and Scuttle. Just because Wonder doesn't walk over, right? It becomes more unexpected when Renekton doesn't move. Interesting.
But overall, Gen.G off to a very good start in the laning phase, early level 2 in the bot lane. You can see the BDD has reclaimed some pressure because the range advantage does have over Caps. And Clid is going to be able to triple buff Jankos as well. So, all in all, good stuff. Their early laning phase has been the better of the 2 teams, the mid game. And even with these small leads that they accrue, they don't really snowball off the back of them.
Jankos goes into the crab after. So since Clid dropped his HP and had to go to the bot side for crab, his top side is still up, so Jankos can just do that. This is gonna look pretty good for Jankos for a bit, just because Clid tanked his HP.
Looks like Jankos just gonna settle to take away these Krugs.
So Clid should know that these Raptors are just coming up.
Rascal has spotted out Jankos. Jankos doesn't have smite. Gets pushed in, he will go and catch those mediums.
Cool, so it's pretty interesting. Both junglers are reading each other's pathing pretty well. Rascal being a good teammate, getting Jankos off the Krugs, and since Clid won't be able to get them, makes a lot of sense for Rascal to take them for himself. It's just denying Jankos. Jankos now has nowhere to be. May as well reset. It's pretty cool. The only thing that Jankos is going to have up is Wolves here, and I think there's some consideration for Clid to go to Golems or Krugs, but he's just dropped way too low on HP for it to be possible.
So the thing is, Clid knew that Jankos was topside, which means that because he's already here,
maybe another jungler could have had like a, made like a choice there. This is pretty good because Clid still has stuff to farm here. I think it helped out a lot that Rascal came over to those Krugs. Caps is looking. Can they get life? Nicely done. Yeah, G2 does not screw around. Caps specifically does not screw around. That is a surprising angle to have found and to actually end up working, but they do it.
Maybe it was a bait, maybe it wasn't. I'm not entirely sure, but all I was just call that's found play. For G2 to commit to that play, Caps isn't going to lose much off the back of it, except for a bit of farming now.
Jankos finds Clid over the wall with the ward, but life is actually rotated here.
That's found Clid.
Trailing onto Clid. Rascal's worked his way down here as well. Jankos does have flash, may have to use it across this wall as Caps dives onto BDD. Level 6 for Caps, only level 5.
BDD's just about to use flash back at this point.
Back into the mid lane. Gen.G going to retreat.
Mickey has now also rotated over.
Of course, no flashes. He burned it earlier on. Just going to stay near Clid to try and re-secure some of this jungle, but G2 are stepping in and will take the Razor Beaks for their own. So
Mickey's not even resetting bottom here. He's running top to pressure Rascal off. Rennington, one of the best divers in the game once he's at 6. Clid's still at 4 at this point. Yeah, I mean, this is really free. So you have a lot of options as how you play things as Rennington, right? One of the best ways to open up dives is to W and then alt because it'll cancel the W. But in this case, we're probably going to want to at least attempt using our W on Rascal's shield if we can. It's not going to be necessary in this case because the he's going to lose all the shield as we're Eing in anyways, and then we're going to get the empowered W off. Then we flash forward, which is actually quite intelligent, because not only does it get us out of turret, but it gives us a secondary target for a Rennington Q to heal. And it's an empowered Q, so it's actually pretty smart. I think it doesn't land on Clid, but regardless, it was intelligent to go for. Now Caps has actually taken Volibear ult and disabled the turret, which is a surprising turn of events, but also a terrifying one. Level 4 Kindred, I think, can die immediately to Rennington here, but Rennington won't quite have the W up just yet. Wonder's pretty close to hitting these another empowered ability. Ooh, Mickey might die here, gets away. Rennington can regenerate a lot of health here, but I think the health bars are just not in G2's favor at this point. Another TP coming in. Caps is just psychotic and just goes back in once he sees that the double Q lands, right? Once again, Clid is level 4. He's going to take a lot of damage. When Caps sees it lands, he follows up with his E because he already casted the first part, right? Classic Silas combo. Q1, E2, Q2, right? Get the full damage burst. Life eats him, obviously, but it's just TF, and TF is more of setting up for other people. And it doesn't quite work out. Yeah, like, it's played well, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out, and it ends up not working out.
So, what surprises me is that G2 were able to get away with what they did. I think Ruler even... Did he burn his flash in that play, or was that in the play in the bot lane? Because for some reason...
Caps just, like, kind of honestly gets Wonder killed there.
The fact that so much was expended and G2 was getting a 1-for-1 overall, I think G2's pretty happy with that. And now they're still looking for Clid. Caps is not done with his rogues.
Clid actually still only level 4 on this Kindred. I was able to get an assist in that last fight. You can see he's only got a single jungle item. They go for the dive early on.
And I love that he steals away the volley bear ultimate to make this dive that much easier. And I think that G2's thinking they can actually turn this, and if it weren't for the TP here from BD, that much easier. And
For the dive early on.
I love that he steals away the volley.
Just trying to think of like other ways this can go. Like, what if Wonder literally just hits Kindred the whole time? Right? Like, what if Wonder E's into Kindred right here and just applies the E damage, the ult ticks, and just autos him down, right? Like, it's probably pretty hard for Gen.G to follow anything up from that point. I'm kind of wondering if that was the way to play it.
BDD does join. Mickey then flashes, uses his E, uses the second E. Kindred for G2 on the bot side of the move.
So the reason BDD had to teleport to that play was because he destinied bot lane, and they were trying to kill Perks.
So Jankos is blues up, and Jankos is walking towards that side, so it does sort of look like he wants to start setting up this dragon, and to start it off by pressuring Gen.G off turret. Ooh, misses the ward.
So we just talked about it. No teleports, no destiny.
This is a double teleport. G2 so pre-active, playing really nicely, right? Caps uses the TF ult, and Wonder just TPs in. Nice, really nice. God, that's like very clean, very fast on very quick on the trigger, knowing what they're supposed to be doing. Just keep it snowballing now that Kindred's in a bad spot, in a really bad spot actually.
Second game, so it's such a stellar performance on that side. So now that control ward is
on the weak side of the map, so why not?
Janko secures the dragon off of that, as is to be expected, because why else did they go for that play?
Gen.G will secure the rift held in the top side of the map. They are trading sides of the map with
Clid
G2.
looks to see if he can get to the blue on time. He can't.
G2 is only a mountain 2,000 gold lead though.
Now there's a lot of ward coverage in Gen.G's favor on the top side, and they've rotated the bot lane up here just because they were doing the rift, and G2 had full committed to diving bot side. Kindred going for his bot side scuttle mark. It does not look like a possibility at all. They have like Gen.G's fully warded up and prepared towards bot side, but they haven't towards top. In this specific spot, even though BDD's TPing in, Renekton looks really good in this spot, right? The Kindred is going to ult, but Renekton is still going to AoE damage everyone low within the ult. Kindred ult in a weird way almost works the best when only one target's getting hit, because it saves one person through burst, but when everyone kind of gets low, it can oftentimes be weaker, even though maybe that's like kind of counterintuitive to think of, because like, oh, don't you want to save more than less people? We'll see. Caps is walking over. He doesn't have TP or anything. It'll be a matter of how fast Wonder dies. One auto will get him the empowered Q. So, okay, so in my head, it looks pretty good at the start. I just, it just doesn't work. So, there's two. Caps should start walking over. They're like, it doesn't matter if Caps is there. If we Destiny right now, we'll make it a 3v2 long enough that it doesn't matter. So, okay, so my first issue is I have a lot of problems with the Renekton Bork build. It's a lot worse. Not problems, right? But it's worse in spots like this, right? Renekton is such an excellent skirmish hero for like 2v3s, 3v3s, and Bork is very much a side lane dumpster 1v1 item, and having Black Cleaver, or at least the components to it, in these spots is often very influential. I'm just trying to figure out the way Wonder does this. So he can't W ult because he won't get an empowered W, and he wants to open up with empowered Ws, so he alt Ws, and this is already a weird way to start it, because it's kind of acknowledgement that they're not ready for TF, because I imagine if you were ready for TF, you'd probably save the W, or at the very least empower a Q for longevity. You know, in general, you aren't using the empowered W to break Volleybear's E, So
G2 found him.
I'm not thrilled about the way Wonder plays this. He then feels pressured to immediately Q, and this this is really awkward Renekton Q he throws right here.
Found another scope.
I was trying to figure out where he Q'd on the first watch. There's literally two things we do with Renekton Q, right? We either empower it to heal ourselves and deal damage, or we use it to get a bunch of rage so we can do something else. If you land the Q on one target non-empowered, super unimpactful, right? The Q he throws out here is not going to buy him time because the Dominus will get him another empowered Q, and he's also used it before TF is in range, and he's not able to hit Kindred with it for maybe a 3-man, so he's not getting a preemptive amount of rage for something else he wants to do. It's just a weak Q that he probably should have held on to, right? At this point, like, if he had maybe thrown some autos, he would have been pretty close to a point where he would have had an empowered Q if maybe he was interested in buying time, but it's looking really doomed at this point. So Caps is going to make it difficult for Clid to walk up here, and maybe Caps has to decide if he wants to try and just burst down Volibear with Jankos here. Jankos does have the ult coming up very soon, and I think the burst with Caps and Jankos is what we need to look out for. I think Caps' ult isn't quite up yet either. So they get Jankos, and Jankos' ult doesn't come back up. These are very close margins. Caps takes Clid's ult here. I think his cooldown on Volleyball probably isn't up yet. Wow, that was terrible. I think for the most part, Renekton hits spots like that really hard, and Renekton is the ideal hero. It just was played a little weird, maybe a little disrespectfully. And also the margins were very close. Caps' ult was coming up, Jankos' ult was coming up. I think I probably talked way too much about that fight. What can I say? I like Renekton. And by the way, the reason Gen.G committed so hard there is because that was a marked Scuttle Crab for Kindred, and that's when you draft Kindred, that's always the win condition.
I was just about to mention that Mickey just upgraded his support item, and
Like, if we get this ideal world where Kindred is very good on gold and has like 10 marks, and you look at G2's comp, you're like, ooh, Kindred crushes them, you know? All my worries are priority based for Kindred's ability to get marks, not Kindred as a hero once she actually has them. So committing resources to get the marks makes perfect sense. So Volibear does have TP and Renekton doesn't. Renekton preemptively roaming? Looking for wards? Not sure what he's doing. But well, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's not able to stop Volley's TP if Volley decides to TP. Volibear's still holding. Renekton now catching the mid wave because Renekton pushes very fast. If you want to commit your mid laner somewhere else, Renekton can easily just farm 2 waves back and forth. Alright, good awareness on Rascal. He's like, I know we win the fight even if I don't commit my teleport. Super good call on his part because he retains teleport.
Gen.G doing a great job of slowing down the aggression. G2 were at a 2k gold advantage, and Gen.G have been able to bring it back to equal. PDD on this Twisted Fate having a much better performance. Game 1 he wasn't really, or Game 2 rather, he wasn't really able to have much impact on this Twisted Fate, but getting involved in that river fight.
Now he's got the Sheen, the Rod of Ages stacking up. Looking to get into these side lanes and really help Gen.G get back into this series, because they're currently moments for them 1 and 5 in the group stages. Ruler may be caught out here. Mickey does have the quickness, but an Ezreal is a very difficult target to lock down. And Gen.G,
Caps is just walking back and forth. I think Caps got too much of an ego off game 2. I don't think he'll be beatable for the rest of the tournament. You heard it, guys. G2 wins Worlds.
However, Jankos also has a bit of a
So neither Rennington or Graves going for a Black Cleaver, and maybe that makes sense, right? Build the Bork build, try and keep the Volibear in the side lane, because right now nobody's going to be able to kill Volibear. All of these heroes are just going to suck at killing him, and Rennington's not going to want to hit him in team fights if possible. He's going to want to try and get AoE damage to an extent. So neither Graves nor Rennington will be stacking Black Cleaver on him, and maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it makes more sense for Rennington to have a Bork and just draw Volibear away. Also, in general, like, the lethality build's a little better on Graves when he's playing when it's a more engaged comp as opposed to reactive comp, because then because in a comp like this, Graves' only purpose for the most part is going to be throwing ult as follow-up. Not quite. Oh, wait, okay, hold on. Okay, so Mickey BDD steps up to gold card. BDD immediately, Mickey immediately catches him with the Recon W, ults, also gets Tahm Kench. Committing on Tahm Kench is a consideration, doesn't seem possible. They pull off. Clid wants to get involved. Mickey ends up running into him because it's warded. Clid gets his ult off in time, but he's only used it on himself. Clid gets over the wall in time. Oh, and then Rennington hits a perfect spot. Low health bars. Like, when it's messy, you know, we're not just doing a straight 5v5. Everyone's ready to focus and target one guy down. Gold card's going to be down right now. Kindred ult's down. Like, no Tahm Kench stacks. Volibear's not going to be able to peel because he's too far away. Volibear shouldn't be here, though. This is a mistake. Rennington's just going to hit this spot super hard. He flashes, opens up with flash, right? He doesn't E. So when you're playing Rennington, E2 only goes off if you use E1, right? So you always want to try and you usually want to try and flash first to get your E in range so you have the ability to get the second one off. And at this point, he's already got Rage on. The way I would probably recommend playing it is Flash Alt E, but he goes for Teleport Alt Flash E. Immediately Qs. He now has an empowered W up because of the rage he got off of his E, and the Dominus gets W. Yeah, I mean, he just hits the spot insanely hard. And G2 is going to need to accelerate the pace of this game to win, so it's very important that they get a big gold swing like that. That's a huge swing for G2. Oh, stuff always happens during the replays. They just catch Clid again. Bad. Oh, man. I mean, Clid's trying. He really is. He's, his invade at the start was interesting, and it seemed like it was going somewhere. He just didn't realize Jankos was looping back around on the Gromp. It caught him off guard, put him into a really weird spot. He then felt pressured to go back and do his own blue, right? But Jankos didn't even go to that. Jankos just kept clearing as he was supposed to. So, like, Clid did get the 3 buff off, but then he was low HP, and Jankos, like, still just farmed in the direction he wanted to. You know, and then, like, you know, Clid's trying to make plays post then, but he was, like, weak on levels, so he was having trouble doing what he wanted to do. It's rough. And like, Caps also just, like, sacked a lot of farm and let Jankos have it. But Caps was, you know, the difference between when Nemesis and Selfmade did it is that Nemesis wasn't necessarily having successful plays when sacking farm, whereas Caps is actually having successful plays while the sacked farm either goes to Jankos or even Wonder. Wonder was catching some mid waves. So 2 Dragons into 18 minutes. The sole win condition for G2 is real and alive. They've now dropped into their 1-3-1 that's been working excellently for them, and Renekton is going to be a little better at 1-3-1ing than usual because he went a Bork.
I think that he's having a very impressive series, but you also have to give credit to Pokes.
Yeah, no, he's a great player as well.
It's, unfortunately for G2,
Orline has been pushed up on the box side.
the best European players.
And there's no proactive options for G2, I mean for Gen.G, they just need to try and farm to the best of their ability. Maybe see if TF can catch someone out while catching waves in the side lane.
But he is on one of his most well-known champions, and we've seen him carry before. Yes, they are at a deficit, but the deficit is...
We're looking at Caps here.
There's no way for them to come back.
There is no TP up on Wonder, so if they wanted to make a play towards Caps, it could be the most logical course of action. This is that G2 did place a lot of wards in this vicinity before backing out of the jungle. You do want to try and get your wards towards the guy that doesn't have TP. I mean, sorry, towards the guy that does have TP, right? Because you can get to the, he can get to the other side and help if there's a fight disparity.
Very isolated here. The vision control from G2 is helping him be no one is behind him, but if they dived on him there, pretty sure Mickey,
instead of replenishing the control towards in, what they've done is they've set up this trio of vision around the entrances, around the choke points, because it's really that's the only part that you care about. As they're entering towards the river, you want to find those...
Baiting a Baron's looking pretty juicy at this point, but also unnecessary. Janko's farming well. TP is going to be up on Wonder, so both sides are going to have TP pretty soon. This is not supposed to happen. Perks has been getting caught a little bit during this game, but he walks up really far. I mean, like, even if he doesn't know people are here, TF has TP. Oof. Oh, he lives. Mickey gets a huge W ult. Janko's, right? Hard for Graves to follow up on stuff. Lethality build, just drop an ult, right? Do your best. Oh no, Clid. Clid. It's not working out for him today. Poor guy. That's Dragon. Also dropping the Rift middle here. Ooh, that was just good bait.
That anyone was waiting for him. Jankos lets out a little chuckle, and he might be laughing his way all the way to semi-finals here, Vedius.
He missed his ultimate. That's why he's laughing. He told Caps to shut up. Bladed Ruler, Life, and Clip. It keeps getting mid lane. Gen.G, they're not getting these team fights that they want. They need to, before going for that last ditch fight, because that could be their last fight of the tournament. They need to make every play count.
Wonder just shadowing Caps here. Debate at the back, but they're like, let's just push down this turret. We'll open it up and make doing Baron a little easier again. They haven't cleared out the wards on this top side though, so Gen.G is quite aware that it's only really Caps and Jankos on the top side at this point. It's going to be very hard for Gen.G to make any proactive movements with this composition. They just need to scale, and I don't know if it's going to be a possibility at this point.
Is going to connect as well as G2 look to push in, gain this mid pressure. Look at the TP behind them. The Rascal on a great flank position here in Gen.G. They want the fight right now. Push in, gain this mid pressure. Look at the TP behind them. The Rascal on a great flank position here in Gen.G. They want the fight right now. BDD with the Destiny.
Where is Caps? Oh wait, Jankos and Caps. Oh, this is so unexpected. So there's wards here, and they think that Jankos and Caps have just backed, but they've actually walked all the way up through into this brush. So they see Jankos, but they don't know Caps didn't reset. Yeah, it seems like Caps reset, right? They didn't watch They didn't see Jankos or Caps go out on the entrance that they had warded, but they also like never like he just never re-showed, you know. BDD tries to go in, but Caps is there. Rascal gets in, tries to go on Perks. So it'll basically be Rascal going in by himself if he does something like this. So there's no initiate abilities, right? They just walk up, push the line up slowly, and hope they don't get caught by spells. Mickey isn't quite dead yet, so he can follow things up. What Wonder should be doing here is... it's hard to say, right? Auto-attacking, not committing spells on Rascal is a really good way to play this. Just build the rage and be ready to do something else. Rascal basically plays this as well as humanly possible. I'll probably have to rewatch this fight. But Wonder's going to re-get spells back here. He will have an opportunity to do something. Caps goes in, gets out the Kindred ult. And there we go. Wonder has the flash. I really hope that E connected so he gets a second one. He's going to get the Q off here. And then he W's, and he doesn't quite get a kill. Once again, that last portion there, the Black Cleaver build probably hits a little harder. That was pretty interesting, so let's watch it again, because that was pretty cool. Because they catch BDD off the start, but Rascal's play is working, and Gen.G is still attempting to be proactive, right? Even in a losing position, which is great. I'm glad they're not feeling defeatist quite yet. Perks is kind of caught here. They don't scout the TP, otherwise Perks probably already would have started moving out, and he doesn't have flash. I mean, we said Rascal was feeling confident on his hero, and it is true. And as we said before, no one can really kill. No one's very good at killing Volibear on this team. Graves isn't able to properly survive and beat him up. And then, like, Caps wants to do something here, but unfortunately Kindred hasn't ulted yet. Pretty interesting. Volibear ended up hitting that spot really hard, which was kind of neat to see. It doesn't usually. Like randomly, like Volibear was like ungetawayable from. That's like not a very common scenario. It's actually way more one-sided if or actually, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like, yeah, it's also like really lucky that BDD just lives.
I don't know if that was the start of the team fight or the end of the team fight.
That was a pretty good team fight. Why are you upset? This is great for Gen.G.
And you can see Ruler really popping off in that fight. 4,000 damage on the edge of the player as well.
Alright, so we are pretty close to Soul Point. Gen.G end up getting the Baron off of that. Their health bars are pretty good, and obviously always easier to do Baron when you have a real tank. So Gen.G, no real initiation. They just got to push up their ball, right? Just got to push the line up and try not to get caught by too much of Rakan, I think is the biggest worry. Too much of Rakan, too much Renekton AoE. G2 need to look for their mark and pressure the fact that they control the side of the river with the Soul Point. Gen.G getting mid-prio, way more potent because they have Baron. They could even consider sending someone to keep the minions Baroned up here, right? Dragon's up in 20 seconds. They could definitely have someone middle still. Yep, they're sending TF now.
No vision. Mickey looking for the flank, puts down a control ward. BDD pushing him mid, has the destiny to join his team if the fight really starts. Rascal's going to go around and clear out this vision from G2, make it so that
Mickey tries to make the pick on Rascal. It would have been a low commitment initiate, right? If this lands. So it's safe even though he's like going right onto the tank they're not really able to kill. Janko's heavily outranged by Graves, very outranged by Ezreal and Kindred right now. It's not going to be easy for Jankos to get free damage like that. Now Caps is on the back looking for picks. This Jin ult right here can definitely cause some disruption, and Gen.G has decided that they just want to peel back on Caps. There is some consideration that G2 should rush a Dragon at this point. We'll see what they do and see how long Caps can live. So he barely gets away, barely gets stacked by the Kindred E. And now this is a position that's looking pretty good. Clid jumps in. I think they didn't have vision, so Clid has to jump in. No, they drop a ward. So he doesn't have to go yet, but he feels that it's too hard for G2 to pressure onto him, so he should jump in now. Once again, Renekton with Black Cleaver probably hits the spot a little harder. because he has a lot of targets and he'll live longer. Ooh, it just becomes a 50-50. It's kind of sad. Kindred Ult wears off right here, and auto smite out of Jankos, and that is all she wrote. Caps, since he lived, he just backs and TPs. He's very focused on taking that Kindred Ult. I don't think it's as effective as he thinks it is. Nice. Oh, Ruler had killer instinct right there, but Caps knew what he was doing. A fellow Ezreal player. Oh, Ruler's very good at the game. But that has to be game. It's too bad it's kind of comes down to a Dragon 50-50. Because Gen.G did seem like they were coming back into this game. So this is going to be a 3-0, eh? I have to skip through because I don't feel like watching anymore. I think we've seen all we need to. Rascal's just running at the back line. Bro, peel for your team. This doesn't help. Oh, and mess up Ruler's KDA? Come on. Alright guys, pretty fun game, pretty fun series. I think it, for the most part, went as expected. G2 able to use early game proactive tools better than Gen.G, even though Gen.G showed a lot of signs of life, and the ability to stabilize earlier in the game with later game heroes, it just wasn't quite enough. But a fun series nonetheless. This has been Gen.G versus G2 Worlds 2020 quarterfinals. If you want to catch this stream live, I stream on Twitch at CruiserTV. If you want to follow me on Twitter, once again, at CruiserTV. And maybe you're watching here on Twitch right now, maybe you're watching on YouTube, but my YouTube is also CruiserTV. Thank you for watching.